Okay, we've talked about health and wellness. We've got that resolution covered. Let's talk about your financial future, maybe gaining some more wealth. I think that sounds attractive to me. With us now is an expert in the field. He is Tom Mathews. He's a certified financial educator, and he's the author of the book, How Money Works. Tom, welcome in, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, John. Thanks for having me on today.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but it seems to me that maybe this year more than any in the past, people are really more focused on their financial future. I don't know if it's interest rates or whatever the case may be. What do you find it to be?
Well, I think you're right. You know, it started with inflation rising. We hadn't had that in my whole 40-year career like we do today. And so when the prices go up, that's a problem. And then, of course, if you buy things and you put it on your credit card and you don't pay it off right away and the interest rates have gone up, that's another problem. And so it seems to me like the problems are compounding, which is causing a lot of people to want to get this solved.
So, Tom, there's probably a lot of folks right now who are watching and say, okay, I'm ready, I'm committed. So can you give us a few tips on how to get started?
Well, I think the first thing you have to worry about is not necessarily the how, but the why. You know, what's your motivation? What are you trying to accomplish? You kind of got to begin with the end in mind. What's your goal? What are you trying to hit and when? And that'll really give you the inspiration to make this happen.
So you talk about, I read your book, and you talk a lot about different streams of income. So in that regard, should it be something that people are really interested in? Should it be something that can instantly maybe generate another stream of money? What do you recommend?
Well, you know, when you choose your career, it comes with a financial side to it. And so you earn a certain amount of money. Now, if you'd like to make more, then you're going to have to find a way to have another stream of income, or maybe a couple. And that usually means being an entrepreneur of some kind, you know, finding a problem to solve. And so we highly recommend that you consider that. And if it's an area that you're interested in, then that's an added benefit.
So what stops people, Tom? I think a lot of times there's all this pushback, and they feel like they're challenging themselves, or they feel like there's no way I can do this. Getting started to be financially healthy.
I think one of the first things is that often financial things you do are kind of invisible to others. You know, it's in your drawer with your statements and it's kind of put away. Whereas some of the other things you do that aren't good for you financially, people can see. And so somehow with human nature, that's kind of become accepted. And so we just have to have you have to know that what you're doing is putting you on track personally, and have the satisfaction that comes from that.
So, Tom, you talk about being on track. How can we hold ourselves accountable? Do you have any suggestions in that area?
Well, we do. You know, unfortunately, none of this is taught in school. So you got to learn how money works. You got to get a financial education, become more financially literate. Then we think you need to work with a financial professional that can help to hold you accountable. Maybe on the career side and on the financial side, have some mentors, people that are successful you can talk to and listen to and be coached by, and maybe be held accountable to. So that all that combines together to create a plan that'll work.
So, Tom, talk a little bit about, maybe someone has a goal and they say, okay, I know I have this goal. So should they write it down? How do they make that goal achievable, I guess is my question.
Well, I think you always have to write it down. You know, if you don't write it down, it's just a wish. Maybe it doesn't happen very often. But when you write it down, you quantify it and you start thinking about it differently, and then you can build an action plan around taking the steps necessary to become successful. Because if you learn how money works and then don't do anything different, then it didn't do you any good. But if you can learn this, you know, if you can get these basic principles and work with a financial professional, you can put yourself in a position with the money you make today, and of course more is better, and to put yourself in a great spot for the future.
Okay, you talked about some of these fundamentals. This book is fantastic, How Money Works. And I realize you don't have time to really go over each and every one of these fundamentals, but could you give me a little bit of an overview, Tom, if you would, please?
Well, I'll give you an example. You know, when you look at, for instance, the money you have in the bank, everybody knows the bank interest rates are low, but you don't really know what it means because that isn't something you've been taught. And those rates are so low that it takes hundreds of years for $1 to turn to $2. But if you have a credit card with that same bank or institution, the rates they charge today are so high that their money doubles every 3 or 4 years. So you got to get some balance back to that. That's just way out of whack, and that's just one area. But it's one great example of what people are doing wrong that over your lifetime causes you to have such trouble.
So interest rates, inflation, the issues that everyone's talking about every day right here on NBC. So can you give me, if you would please, maybe a few immediate things that we can do to kind of battle those and, as you say, balance things out a little bit?
Well, we've also had last year, one of the more volatile stock markets we've had. So your 401k has kind of become a 301k, if you will. And some of those kind of things are going on. And so that makes people a little bit hesitant to try. And what we suggest is that you just have to sit down and figure out how much you can put aside to pay yourself first, and to consider what you're saving for the future to be just as important as anything else you spend money on, maybe even more important. And that's a great mindset to have going into this. And then, like I said, take the advice of a pro and put it in place and keep it in place, and that'll make it happen for you.
Tom, you talk about take the advice from a pro. It seems to me, I have this friend, and she has a way with money. It seems like everything she invests does well, or she always makes the right decision. Do some people have more of an aptitude to succeed when it comes to money, or is it something that we can all learn?
I think it's something that can be learned. Like I said, it wasn't taught in school, so you don't have any foundation for it. But once you learn the basic principles and you get around like somebody who's successful, like your friend, or somebody who's a professional that does this for a living, you can learn what you have to do with that education, take that literacy, and go forward into a great plan that can help you become successful.
Tom Mathews, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to hold with us through the commercial break.
Sure.
I have a lot more questions. I'm sure a lot of folks out there are wanting to pick your brain a little bit, so we shall return. More with Tom Mathews. He is an author, and he is also a financial educator. He's coming up next on Wave Listens.